Welcome to this webinar. We'll give the rest of the participants still 3 minutes to come to us. So please be patient. I'm coming back in a second. So welcome again and welcome to this webinar. Today we'll be talking again about SAP licensing. Could you please do me a favor? I've been having some issues today with my microphone. Could someone of you confirm in the chat that you're properly hearing me? That would be very kind. Then I can make sure everyone is clearly listening. Thank you. Perfect. I get it. So here we go. We'll be talking today about preparing properly an SAP license measurement and the difference between system measurement, yearly system measurement, or a proper SAP enhanced audit, which is something that SAP doesn't do on a yearly basis, but every once in a while, or when they have motives to suspect that your licensing is not totally okay, they would check on how things are going with your SAP installation. So getting rid of my camera so that you can better see the screen. Well, very briefly about our company, this won't be long. We started in the 80s as a systems integrator in Germany. And today, and for the last 10 years, we've been with the part of our company, which is called VOQUZ Labs, engaged in helping clients understanding their SAP licensing, helping them in their transactions with SAP, understanding their contracts, understanding terms and conditions, pricing, metrics, and everything that is related to properly managing licensing. So our clients are in all business sectors. They start with some 200-300 users and go up to 1.2 million users. This is our biggest client. They have something between 1 and 300 connected SAP systems. We do around 120 projects per year, and we help clients avoiding unnecessary costs and better understanding when they have shelfware, when they have things that they could exchange for software from SAP that they have more use for etc. So our areas of activity are SAP license optimization, authorization management, compliance management, and user provisioning with our second tool called SAP, and advisory, helping start something with the outcomes of the SAP license optimization tool to prepare properly for an SAP audit. Now, what will we be talking about today? License measurement. When does it happen? Which licenses make sense for my company? What is compliance and how to attain the right level of compliance? What is with digital access? How should I prepare for that? And then the most sensible ways to organize subsequent purchases. You start using SAP at a certain point in time and things change, your company grows, you have a divestment and separate into two companies, so more what happens in those situations. And then sudden new costs when you are being audited, and how to cope with that, what to do with that. So license management in general, as you know it. So if you properly read your SAP license agreement, there is an audit term in this contract that allows SAP to ask for a system measurement once a year, which is you measuring what you are using today in opposite to what you originally purchased. And normally, when you start with SAP, you make the best effort in estimating which licenses you will be needing. Now, this changes over time. The number of people that work in your company change, your needs change, you set up new projects and buy additional licenses, you decommission some licenses because you're suddenly transferring a part of your processes to another tool. So the problem is there is change all of the time. And SAP requires an annual audit or annual system measurement to understand, are you still compliant? Is what you're using really more or less about what you purchased originally, or would you need to do something else? And in between those two measurements, the one this year, the one next year, things change. And the question is, do I have compliance gaps? Do I have some blind license spots, things that I don't know about? My revenue increased, my amount for purchases, total procurement changed over time. Things are in change all of the time. So what happens normally is that you do a true-up, as Microsoft often calls it. So you try to update the level of licenses that you have to the actual truth of today, and you do this more or less once a year. Now, companies like Microsoft have a standard true-up process where they ask you once a year to look into your systems and see if you have changed your demand and need to adapt to it. In the case of SAP, SAP expects the client to proactively regulate, mitigate his compliance situation. So waiting for the system measurement to happen and waiting for the audit to happen and then mitigate the situation is not the proper approach. You need to proactively be aware of your licensing situation at any time so that you can mitigate the situation before the auditors come in. Why is that? Because according to SAP's contracts, not all of them, but in many of them, SAP is entitled to charge you license price for your sub-licensing, for your deficits. And although SAP kindly does not always do that, and in fact, they in very seldom cases do it, you should be prepared for that and buy licenses at your own standard discount. So how do I get there? How do I get to find out about those compliance gaps and understand my situation? Now we say, of course, you should be optimizing your licensing on a constant basis. So what does it mean? On the one hand, we have the user licenses. You have the purchased licenses that you bought at a certain point in time, the ones that are named in your contract with SAP. And then you have an actual measurement. The tools analyze what users are doing, the transactions that they are executing, how often do they execute something, do they at all log into the system, do they have multiple logons and more people than one are using the logon data, which should not be the case, but it happens in occasions. And this measurement should show in any situation which licenses to whom you have, which persons to which you have assigned a license are correctly assigned. So let's say they have been assigned a professional license, but in reality, they don't do that much. They only print out reports, so they could maybe be working with an employee, or on the opposite, they have been assigned an employee user or an employee self-service user, but they are very proactively working with the tool, writing new documents, entering data, and they need a higher license type like the professional one. So this is why we show today in a tool like ours, which persons have a correct license assignment, which ones have a too high license assignment, which ones have a too low license assignment, and what would the optimized configuration look like. So this is what you have in your SAP license audit workbench, the actual measurement. And this is an optimized configuration where we see that we assign everyone the license type that they need. And at the end, you see, do I have, according to this optimized configuration, a deficit or a surplus? So being aware of that is important because you eliminate compliance gaps. We see in many occasions that doing manual license assignments, people end up overpaying, or they, on the contrary, are in a situation where they are totally under licensed. They have assigned their users very low license types when they in reality would need a higher license type. But in any case, you should know what is coming up in the next system measurement. Do I need to purchase additional licenses? Or on the contrary, should I kindly ask SAP whether they could exchange some of the licenses that I have, higher type licenses like the professional ones, for cheaper license types? So it is your responsibility to properly assign licenses, since it is in your interest to optimize your costs and really use your investment in SAP in the best way possible. You can't expect SAP to correct this. You can't expect SAP to advise you on that. It is your task as a client, as an SAP user, to know, am I in a deficit situation? Do I have a surplus that I should correct? and being transparent at any time. Now, I have been doing these kind of projects for over 15 years now. And in the beginning, we didn't have tools because they were expensive, they were complicated to install. And in the end, we did our best to manually assign licenses, leaving on the table a lot of potential that you can just explore today with any of the tools that are on the market and do work properly. We are, of course, not the same one here. So the license measurement, it means that you normally need to permanently review, readjust, and obtain transparency to understand your compliance situation. SAP requires your annual survey or measurement results every year, and it changes all of the time. We don't have a client who doesn't change all of the time in that area. Now, which licenses are useful for my company? Talking for now only about user licenses. What happens is that most of the clients they are not aware of the license types that they can obtain from SAP. You can see here, these are the kind of things that SAP presents when we don't have COVID on the Sapphire yearly meeting. They present you with new products, new license types. There are specific SAP licensing seminars where they present the news, the things that come out. And you have the price and conditions list, which is public. So the prices are not public, but the information about new products and the use rights is published all of the time. And I strongly recommend to be reading this to understand what options you have. Now, when you start working with SAP, when you do your first contract, you normally don't really know what do I need. And depending on the knowledge of the key account manager who supports you, they might advise you to buy professional users, in the past limited professional users, maybe an employee user, maybe something else. But as you can see today, this is an extract from the actual price list. There are many more options. You have the manager, self-service user, the logistics, the worker, the project user, platform user, with very, very different pricing from one to the other. So understanding which license type everyone needs changes totally your financial configuration. So make use of the entire license range. This is what we're saying. When you have in your contract all the license types, or at least a big part of them, and you have the opportunity to assign your users the right license types, you are saving money, you're avoiding overspending. Now, it is difficult to manage this without tools. That's a fact. The more license types you have, the more difficult it gets to assign them properly on a manual basis. Now, on the low blue box on the right, you can see the new license types for S/4HANA, S/4HANA on-premise in this case. We are talking about S/4HANA Enterprise Management for professional use, productivity use, and functional use. The functional use, the productivity use is a license that was just now changed in Q1 in the new price list, and SAP explicitly added the functionality of doing invoice approvals or approval processes in general. We are talking about the least expensive license type, and in the past it was unclear, what do I need when I have users that only approve invoices? Managers who read reports, approve invoices, don't do that much with SAP actively other than getting reports, looking at dashboards, approving things, approving processes. Now you have a license type that does support this in S/4HANA. In SAP ERP, it is still not defined properly. So this is more or less a case of negotiation where you will have to discuss with SAP which license type you need, which is the cheapest license type possible to approve invoices. Some clients, especially bigger clients with special needs, they defined they define own license types with SAP. They come to an agreement on the functionality of a specific user type that they need in their case, and this helps you very often solve a specific need of your company in the plant management area, in the logistics area. SAP tries to bring out more and more license user types that match the needs of as many people as possible. But in occasions, with SAP working in almost all branches, it's difficult to have the specific license type that you need. In such cases, discuss this with your account managers. You might come to an agreement for a specific license type for your company. So, which licenses are useful for my company? You need, when you measure this with tools, you need to have a tool that, first of all, has the standard, all the standard license types according to SAP's use rights definitions. SAP has an official document that you can download from their site, and normally your software license agreement will have a link to this document. This is the use rights document. And in this document, the rights that every user license type has is defined. So when you buy a tool, you should start defining and customizing these standard license types, but the tool should bring them with it. On the other hand, you might, as I said, have specific agreements with SAP for specific license types, and the tool must adapt to this and let you, with as little effort as possible, define those user license types in the tool. Now, the tool must be based on SAP standard use rights documentation. This is very important because this documentation of the standard use rights is part of your contract, and making sure when you assign licenses that you're complying with it is relevant, is vital. The use rights change over time, as I just told you. For example, the productivity user type in S/4HANA got a new function. You must make sure that the templates that you're using to assign your users, the profiles for every license type that you have, match this specific license types at all times. This is why you get updates from software license management tool to always have the specific license types that are in place at the time. So now the next thing is you shouldn't be caring about measuring licenses and taking care of that. This is why you have a tool. So tools should in the background all the time being optimizing, analyzing activities, and then giving you setting in SAP the proper license assignment to every single user, so that you, in every case, when your managers come and they want to understand what is your compliance situation, you get an overview immediately about license gaps, over licensing, etc. This is a permanent process. People change their departments, people leave the company, new people come into the company. Assuming that this is a task that could be done once a year is not right, especially if, as we said, you should proactively be configuring your licenses. You need to have a tool that does this all of the time. So what more? Let's look into the compliance situation. When I started with this license management things years ago, I thought a client would be either in a deficit or in a surplus, and that would be the compliance measurement. Now, if you look at this dashboard that we have today in our tool, this is not right. We have a client here who has a surplus of 994,000 euros, and he has also a license audit risk of $6.5 million. This is not an uncommon situation. Why is that? Well, I mean, it is nice that you know that you purchased licenses from SAP years ago for $10 million, and you are only using licenses for $8 million. but what if you have the wrong licenses, because demand change all the time. So what happens very often when we do an audit preparation, is that we find out that clients have some licenses that are out of use, engines they purchased, the project never went live, they decided to do other things. And on the other hand, we have licenses where the need have increased over time. And so in the same situation, even though you have a surplus, you can, on the other hand, have in parallel a deficit in some of the products that you purchased. Now, you must understand that when you buy a product, you don't have the right by contract to just say, well, my total license situation is X, so I don't owe anything. No, you have an obligation to be compliant with every single product that you purchased from SAP. I'm not saying that SAP isn't open under certain circumstances to agree to some license exchanges, but you must be clear over the fact that you don't have the right to do so. It is a question of flexible negotiation of I take something, I give something, to have SAP helping you in not paying support maintenance for tools you don't use. But on the other hand, if your demand changed over time, this is not necessarily the responsibility of a software publisher. So it is clear that the first step is you need to know what your actual situation is. Where do I have my surpluses? Where do I have my deficits? How much do I need to negotiate with SAP and find a proper solution? So let me get a glass of water. Now, on the other hand, what can we say? Should you be paying maintenance for tools that you don't use anymore? Now, you could find people, if you ask them, that tell you you can't lower your maintenance in any way. And in general terms, you agree to a certain maintenance revenue with SAP, which is the normal thing. But of course, SAP also knows that things change over time. And if they don't remember, you can tell them. So what am I saying? Canceling maintenance for products that you don't use is an absolutely clear thing. It's a clear need. Now, if you, for example, move over to S/4HANA, SAP has in the contract conversion a clear process on how to exchange old shelfware for new software that you actually need. This is a case where SAP explicitly defined, we accept that you exchange licenses out of use for new licenses that make sense for the company. But in general terms, if you are not changing, if you are not moving to S/4HANA now or in the next 4 years, you need to come to an agreement or you need to definitely cancel licenses. Now, if you cancel maintenance for those licenses, you will lose them. When you move over to S/4HANA, you won't get any license credit. If you move over to S/4HANA with a contract conversion, you will get 100% license credit for your old licenses, even those which are out of use, but not if they're out of maintenance. So you must do the math and understand, well, when am I planning to move over to S/4HANA? Is it worth to stick with my old licenses out of use for 2 years, still pay maintenance for them so they are credited back to me in 2 years when moving to S/4HANA? Or should I rather, because I'm not moving in the next 5 years to S/4HANA, should I rather really cancel them and discuss a cancellation with SAP? So compliance checks in all systems doesn't happen manually, even with tools. Some products are self-assessment products, like I don't remember right now an example. Don't get to it. But you have engines that are based on company revenues, for example. This is a self-assessment product. And in these cases, you can only enter your revenue manually in the tool. It doesn't come out automatically from SAP. So there is some manual work to do and some automatic work that you can get from the tools. The thing when you don't do license optimizations is that you will get unexpected audit findings. And unexpected means you don't have the budget to mitigate and correct the situations. So knowing the terms of use and analyzing your license situation constantly brings you into a position of proactively being able to negotiate with SAP and manage your cost situation. So optimization software permanently checks compliance and makes the situation visible. When you are aware of your situation, especially of your surpluses, you are in the situation to exchange licenses for others where you might have a compliance gap. Not doing this brings you into a situation where after the audit, SAP will just, with a standard process, do a mitigation proposal when it's already too late to discuss about anything, about license exchanges, about things. And although at occasions SAP is very flexible, you have brought yourself into a situation where you are not compliant, so you're subject to the results of the negotiation, and you brought yourself there not being properly prepared. So now, getting away from general terms and into a specific term, digital access or indirect usage. So we did see two occasions with Anheuser-Busch and with Diageo in Europe, where SAP applied some legal claims and in the end negotiated out of courts with the clients a solution for their digital access. Today, SAP is very reluctant with legal claims. We don't see this happening. But indirect use was defined in 2018 officially in the Sapphire meeting. And today, since I think it's 1.5 years, I don't remember properly, you have the Digital Access Adoption Program, which is a 90% discount offer for digital access, so paying for documents instead of paying for users in the case of connected non-SAP applications. So when you have a non-SAP application connected to SAP, you need to purchase additional licenses. You can either give the users in this third-party application a user license, a named user licenses. This is what is called indirect usage or legacy licensing model, or you pay for the digital access documents of 9 kinds that these third-party applications delivers into SAP, which might make sense in many situations, like when you have B2C applications, when you have EDI applications delivering data, invoices into SAP, etc., etc. Now, what we see today in our digital access document findings in our client base, those clients where we have done a digital access risk assessment, they show a licensing risk that starts at $0 US and goes up to $150 million US. So I'm not saying they're paying $150 million US. This is clearly a case for a special negotiation, but I'm saying this is definitely something relevant. It makes sense to be prepared. And you just need to understand today, where are you today? Do I have an issue with digital access, or is this a non-issue in my company? So what can you do when you find out that you do have digital access? You can do nothing and risk an audit, and our colleague wrote here unfriendly audit. Well, unfriendly is a question of understanding. Fact is, if you didn't find proactively a solution for a license situation that is defined in the use rights, I might not be friendly either if I was SAP. Question is, If you don't regulate, mitigate it, you risk, if you don't do this year where the digital access adoption program is in place, you are risking not obtaining next year, we don't know yet, the 90% discount for digital access adoption. And this is a high discount. So either accept all SAP demands from digital access later, or negotiate things, all indirect activities free, and this will probably not be to your advantage. Now, if you do nothing right now but license digital access after 2021, you are losing the 90% discount, but you could still license buy user licenses. There is a real danger that SAP demands back maintenance. They do this in audits in occasions. This is a mitigation thing that is subject to negotiation. I haven't been in a negotiation where we paid back maintenance. I think SAP shows quite flexibility. They might show you a proposal to pay a year of back maintenance. I don't see this happening very often. I haven't been in a negotiation where we paid that. So this is not a big thing. The thing is basically the discount and the problem that if you don't regulate it this year, you might have to pay a higher price. Now, if you decide to stick with the user-based license model, this is a non-issue because you could still mitigate with users next year with usual user license prices. The question is, what is cheaper for my company? And you need to also do this math. You need to compare the indirect licensing model based on users with a digital access licensing model based on documents. So our message here is very clear. Find out where you are. It's simple. It is a question, when we install a tool at a client, it takes us around 2 weeks to understand what is his licensing situation with a quick assessment. Does he have a surplus of user licenses or a deficit? How many digital access documents does he have? And so you get a brief overview to at least understand digital access and user licenses in a quick shot and understand, do I have an issue or is this a non-issue? Okay, so digital access or indirect usage. The thing, we have several aspects here. Now, SAP recommends you mostly when they send you an audit requirement letter to provide, to install the SAP notes to do the estimation report for digital access. Now, somehow SAP has understood and recognized that this estimation report is not very accurate, not to say not accurate. And they brought up a new measurement method that is called SAP Passport. This SAP Passport measurement system, it excludes automatically SAP to SAP communication. It mostly excludes also batch processing and makes the measurement very accurate. Problem is, if you install it today before the audit, you won't get measurements until now in 12 months. And you have to have it installed on all your systems. And the systems, I don't remember, but they need to be higher than a 7.3, 7.2 license. Not sure about this one, but definitely not in a 6er version. So your systems need to be updated. You need to have SAP Passport installed on all systems so that the passport measurement for digital access works. And the estimation report that you get is not very precise. So if you want to have a precise estimation, you do your estimation report and then get into a use case analysis, which is something we can help you with. Now, the question is, if you're not forced to install a measurement or estimation report that shows results that are not totally accurate, should you at all be doing that? Questionable. We offer our clients the alternative to do a quick assessment, not install any SAP notes on it. We count the documents exactly the same way as SAP does that, give you an overview of where you are, and then you can decide whether to move on to do the use case analysis. If you have findings, if you have relevant findings, you can also come to the conclusion that you have a measurement of 2,000 documents a year and it's not worth even taking care of it. But if you find out you have 100 million documents a year, then you should get into a use case analysis and understand, do you have a threat of under licensing there? Okay, this is about how to do that. Now, again, I told you at the beginning about the true up process. As said, some software publishers, they have a standard true up process. SAP's standard organization is, we send the client license a system measurement inquiry letter, and so you send them over your system measurement, and in most occasions they will import this data you send them in their systems, analyze if you have an under licensing in any situations, and if they find so, they will send you an audit report, they will send you a mitigation proposal, and there you are negotiating about things that you weren't prepared for. Our advice here is do this proactively. Measure your license situation, execute SLO from the beginning, before SAP comes into the house. Before SAP asks you to do a system measurement, understand where you are. So the problem is, once they request you to do a license measurement and you don't know where you are, you can find that you have things that you didn't buy, that you have license shortages, and sometimes it's only a quantity, but sometimes, well, SAP will ask you to mitigate the situation in a way that is not the most optimal. Now, there is a system measurement guide from SAP you can download from the support portal, and it tells you exactly which are your responsibilities and which are SAP's responsibilities. And it says, for example, that you as a client are responsible for classifying your users according to SAP's contract and use rights. Now, if you are the responsible one for doing so, don't wait for SAP to come and tell you how to classify your users, because the license audit workbench will just tell SAP, well, I found 500 licenses that have a too low license type. It won't specify that those ESS users, for instance, could be properly licensed with a worker user, with a logistics user instead of a professional user. But SAP doesn't take care of that. This is not their responsibility. It is you who must find out which is the cheapest license type that I need for every user. And there again, we say, don't wait for those things to come up. Be proactive there and make sure that you solve the situation before they come up with the audit. God, now I'm worried. I'm seeing someone saying not able to hear your voice. I hope you can hear me now. Again, what did I tell you about the loss of discount, company discount? In the situation of an SAP audit, SAP sends you after the audit report, SAP sends you a preliminary audit report. You have to sign this one off. You have to confirm that the findings are correct. And my advice, well, auditors have a lot of work. They need to process the audit as quickly as possible. And it might happen that every here and there, they make a mistake. So take the time to confirm the findings of the auditor and make sure that what they have found is plausible, it is correct. Make counter checks and make sure that the finding is correct before you sign off the audit report. Once you have signed off the audit report, they send you the final audit report with the findings that they have, the things where you are in a surplus and the things where you're not compliant. And then you get, this is promoted to the SAP sales department, and they will send you a mitigation proposal. Now, in this case, when we are talking about a non-compliant situation, SAP doesn't see themselves forced to give you your company discount. So in the worst case, you will get a proposal based on list prices. Now, if you understand that software companies in general today provide their clients discounts between 10 and 90%, it is a very, very big difference to pay a list price or a mitigation proposal based on your company discount. So make sure that you're proactive there and don't wait for a mitigation proposal, but purchase proactively and in the right sequence. After the audit, there is pressure to close the audit, to close the negotiation, and it gets more and more difficult to get there. So how should you prepare to do that? First step is to understand what your license level is, to understand what your shortages are, and to detect them and decide on a quarterly or half-year basis to true up your licensing situation. A tool like our SAMQ shows possible license alternatives so that you can also classify your users differently, more adequate to their actual usage, and avoid unnecessary license purchases. Now, SAP themselves in the S/4HANA Cloud version, they have changed the user configuration. They work with a metric today that is called full user equivalence. Now, when you take the full user equivalence, it's like you buy a professional user, and for this professional user, you get 5, I don't remember the name, let's say functional users or 20 productivity users. So you exchange expensive users for less expensive users, and you can do this exchange once a year. Now, if we assume that for one wrong user licenses, you could get 20 right user licenses, understanding these alternatives, these possible license alternatives, means a lot of money. So time of purchase, as said, usually big companies who are in control of licensing, they do this on a quarterly or half-year basis, but buying early at company discounts at your conditions with time to negotiate exactly the types of licenses that you're needed is definitely the favorable option you're looking for. So how to organize this? Identify shortages early, compare your shortages with the licenses out of use, negotiate with SAP if there are possibilities for exchange, and search for the most cost-effective license variants. Also, something that happens here very often, SAP changes the metrics. Sometimes the new metric could be to your advantage and sometimes to your disadvantage. When you have licensed to a metric from the past, you have contracted, this is written in your contract. This is the basis of your contract, so you can stick with this metric. There is no obligation to change the metric to the new one because your contract says so. Unless, of course, you have a contract that links to the actual use rights and you didn't notice that, and so the actual use rights are the relevant ones, but in general terms, your contract is what counts. And SAP is also flexible in there. When the metric changes and the new metric is more adequate to your specific needs, I'm saying it's cheaper to license with a new method. SAP very often is open to change the metric situation and exchange the old licenses for the new metric so that you have a bigger surplus. So investigate those changes, be prepared for that. Don't wait for the audit to happen there. So letting SAP determine type and quantity of required licenses should be avoided because only you know exactly what is really needed. And this is basically what happened. An auditor can only do a one-shot look into your licensing situation. If you spend more time into investigating your metrics, your compliance situation, you will definitely always come to a better assessment of your situation than if you wait for the auditor to provide you that insight. So, and the idea is the worst part of everyone is here avoiding unplanned costs. You know how companies work today, especially if you're in the stock market, you need to be reliable. You have you publish an expectations of revenues, you publish an expectations of your yearly results. And if you have unplanned costs, this is worsening, this is changing your margin. This is exactly what every CEO, especially CFO, is trying to avoid. So coming up with things that are not in budget is the worst thing that you can do as a department manager, as a CIO. So detect the shortages in the named user inventories before the survey is performed, and check at least your engines 4 times a year. This is definitely easy to be done. The first time it takes you maybe a month time, but the second, third, and fourth time, it's a very, very easy practice. Now, over the year, monitor the SAP marketplace for the new SAP nodes for measurement. Why is it's more the support portal? Why is it? Because also the way of measuring products changes. In the system measurement area of your SAP support portal, you will find a description of every single metric measurements, every single engine measurement. So understanding what is to be measured and what not is essential to evaluate whether a measurement is correct or it is not viable, or it is just not acceptable in the mitigation. And this is where I'm coming to my end. Thank you very much for listening. If anyone has any questions, I'll be gladly answering them. I'll give you 3 minutes to put in your questions. And unless you have any, I for now wish you all the best. Thank you very much for attending this webinar and for taking part. You have our addresses. You will obtain a copy of this document. You have our email addresses there. Peter Ratai, he's our founding partner and managing director. I'm, as said, the global director advisory at VOQUZ, and Jan will be repeating this webinar in the European time zone. I think even we changed it for Rogan, my advisory colleague in South Africa. I don't see any questions coming now. If you have anything, let me know. If you enter the questions and I wouldn't be answering them now, I will get them via email and answer them later. Thank you very much, everyone. So now, finally, I couldn't see the questions for some reason. Okay. No, this was all answered. Thank you very much again. See you later. I think there is nothing. No, thank you. You have a good day. Take care. Bye-bye. Yes, we will share the presentation afterwards. You will get it via email if you provided the proper email address, which I'm not sure I got this question. Which is the lowest cost of user license? Are you asking for the cheapest license type that SAP has on the price list? Okay, and if this is the case, the cheapest license type that you find on SAP's price list is called Employee Self-Service Core User. This is by, and on S4HANA, it is the productivity user. General, I don't remember the exact price, but it is below $100 for the ESS core user. And the official price for the productivity user, I must look it up. It's around, I don't remember, it's $300 or 300 euros. List price. No problem. So thank you very much. Just send me an email if you have additional questions, and I'll be gladly answering them. You have a good day. Goodbye.